culture in ancient Tamare, Egypt, once the person died, as they call it, they had an embalming ceremony where the relatives and the friends never saw the person until the whole ritual was over. And the next time they saw them, they saw a gold, bronze, copper, or wood, depending on how rich they was, replica of them, as beautiful and more lustrous as the great sun Ra that we worshipped. You understand what I'm saying? So they never saw them dead in order for them to leave that impression in your mind, that period of regression. Now each stage of that stays with you and haunts you. You follow what I'm saying? But you have got to. You've got to step over that and go back to when she was healthy. You got to get in there. Don't cut me off there. I heard you cut me off. Don't cut me off inside. You got to go back there and you got to remember incidents. You got to have a treasure chest of things in your life that you had with your mother, very special things that makes you remember her embracing you or giving you that first doll or something on Christmas or something that was special when you fell, and get that picture and meditate on that image over and over again. Every time the other image comes to your mind, you ride over it with that new image, so you replace it in your subconscious mind. Eventually the other image will fade away and all you remember is the good, and you see her standing there and you will have resurrected her to live eternally in your heart. You hear me? Now, as far as things haunting you in your sleep, what a lot of people don't understand is disembodied souls roam this planet because they're trapped here because they were too material. And when they passed, they couldn't get out. And they have to stay here until they fuse out. And they use people's life. And they keep channeling through people. And this is how they prolong their stay on this plane. Right? Oftentimes, we go into a state referred to as sleep paralysis, when we're very rested, but we can't go directly into slumber. So we go into a semi-slumber state. We think we're awoke, but we are paralyzed and conscious. And this is the best avenue or best plane from which these beings can touch you. You follow? And what defends you is a serum in your body called adrenaline. It repels them because it blocks the blood. Because when the person becomes afraid, their body goes into a defense. And the white corpuscles, white blood cells, and red blood cells get ready to defend the body. And it calls on the telephone and speaks to the inner chamber of the blood and says, hemoglobin, call the plasma and tell them to get ready. I'm serious. And it takes a message, and this is the nerve system, which has a link to the brain and has its own intelligence center, sending all these messages that something is about to happen. The first thing it does is it sends up a serum that shoots into the dermis, just above the epidermis, the lowest layer of skin, and it creates little bumps on the body. That's called fear bumps. They raise. They are creating a defense or a cushion against an attack. We're not as strong as we were when we kiloed it. So we create this little, and the hair sits up. This is a defense mechanism that human beings have in them. But if something is strong enough to penetrate the skin, then the message is, go there and knit that back together. And the white corpuscles race against the red corpuscles. The red corpuscles are full of breath, so they move faster. So you bleed first. And then the white corpuscles get around, form pus, form a clot called a scab from the hemoglobin, the oxygen, and then the plasma, and it starts to knit you up. You follow what I'm saying? There's a link between you and that blood, and those disembodied souls who can get to the blood to breathe. That's why they try to possess people, for the blood. That's why in all their spooky movies, Dracula wants the blood. In all the Satanic so-called churches, it's always a blood sacrifice. In the ancient scriptures, they're cutting up goats and giving blood. And God smelled the sweet savor of the burning offering, the blood on the altar. These disembodied souls feel connected to the blood. You hear what I'm saying? So when you go into that state of sleep paralysis, beings are trying to get you. Has nothing whatsoever to do with joining, other than the fact that you probably said, this happened when I started joining. And he goes, yeah, that's when it started happening. It starts creating, it becomes a reality. You're looking for a solution so that you can get rid of it. If you go back to when it started happening, trace who you came in contact with, did you move rooms, did you change the direction you sleep in, anything, start putting the pieces together, you'll see where it really came in at. Beings are trying to get to you. Now here's the best part about it. If they could, they would have. If they could have gotten you, they would have done it by now. They're waiting for you to get weaker and weaker. And by not sleeping, your body becomes weaker and weaker. And your resistance gets weaker and weaker. And they think they can pounce down them. You follow what I'm saying? But they can't. Unless you let them in. That's why they tell you Dracula can't get in the house unless you invite him. In every movie. See, they can't get in unless you invite them. And they're trying to weaken you through fear of the unknown, the lack of sleep, until you say, something help me. Anybody help me. And they'll knock right on that door and walk in. Overcome them. Stay up until you fall out. And you'll be asleep. In other words, don't go to bed. I'm not going to bed. You understand what I'm saying? Let me go another way for you. There's another avenue here. This is another whole channel of people who they can't sleep. There's a fluorescent light. It's called daylight. What might be happening also is your body rhythms might be out. In other words, there are people that are night people. And they stay up at night and they sleep in the day. There's a solution to that. They have to take and put on a day light in a room with them during the night until they can transform the night till the day. And then their body rhythm will change. People who take on night jobs and stuff like that eventually train their body to stay up at night. You understand what I'm saying? There's lights you can buy, a fluorescent light, not incandescent, fluorescent light that's daylight. And you train yourself by sitting in front of that light. And even though it's night, it'll appear day to you. And eventually your body rhythms will start to change. That's another approach. Because I can't tell you which one it is. It could either be bad sleeping habits, or it can be beings trying to weaken you. I'd like to lean on the second. You follow what I'm saying? What was you going to say?
I was just saying that, you know, with us staying up all
Yep.
out, staying up till she fall out, that I have to stay up with her, and that puts a strain on me.
It's like I'm not asleep. It's like this time it's like something is like, you know, I can feel it.
That's sleep paralysis then. Then you're in a state of sleep. She's in a state of sleep paralysis. That's all it is. It's a form of being asleep and awoke at the same time. You're caught in between. Right? You may have to put yourself through that stress because you love her. You're right? Enough days for her to catch her rhythm again. That's what love is about. It's about sacrificing. You may have to. I know you got to go to work, but you may have to take that strain and hard and work and yarn to get her system back in place. I mean, that's not too hard to do, is it? But let's do it. If you want to investigate, but look up sleep paralysis. Read up on sleep paralysis. All right? Yes.
I wanted to ask you about 9999. Is that got something to do with the Y2K, or is there something going to happen on that?
9999 is really mathematical figure 9 to the 9th power of 9. But when we write it out, people usually say 999. It's 9 to the 9th power of 9. That's the largest figure that you can calculate because the highest number is 9. Anything else, any numbers above 9 are compound numbers. Meaning 11 is a compound of 2 ones. 12 is a compound of a 1 and 2. They're not numbers. They're compound figures. So 9 is the highest number. We have 2 figures of death and destruction that pertains to the beast, and his was 6666. That was when last time the devil came into power on earth. And that was up in 72nd Street when he incarnated through Pope Paul VI, PP6. A P is an inverted 6. You follow that? And then we have our own 999, 9th month, 9th day of 1999, which was the end of the devil's rule. Those 2 figures are there. In Freemasonry, they hide behind the sacred number of the sacred names of Ra and say he has 60.